Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Heya. Mainly on this channel we talk about vegan living and nutrition science. And a few years ago I did my PhD in nutrition science, and since then I have a lot of people reaching out and asking me what it's like to do a PhD, what to expect of that kind of program, and also if they go on to do one, then what advice I would have. So I thought I would make this video in case it's helpful for anybody out there. So if you're here and you found it, hello, welcome. I hope this is helpful for you. This is all the advice I have for first year PhD students. I'm gonna go through it all. I've split it into kind of two sections. The first section is how to start your research strong, and the second section is all about how to look after yourself well, because a PhD is a marathon, it's not a sprint. It's about finding that pace and way of working that keeps you going for years and years. So first part, how to start your research strong. The first thing you want to do is really delve into your topic. Take the time to get to grips with the literature. What does this entail? Knowing and understanding the key papers and the key authors and research groups that are in your area. This also helps you have a firm understanding of what the knowledge gaps are. What is it that's known and what is not known? And how does your research fit into this overall web of knowledge? You can start mapping out in your mind the relevant research in your field and how your project fits in. Taking the time to do this and do it well can help you build up the foundational knowledge that you need to be able to move forward in your project with a lot more confidence and a lot more direction. So don't underestimate this part. Give yourself the time to read and to write and to really understand your area and your research field. And usually what a lot of supervisors will ask is that you do a literature review in the beginning, and this is what helps you solidify that foundational knowledge. The next thing I would then do is look at your supervisor's previous students' theses. I find that it's so useful to help guide you and understand where you're heading ultimately after 3 or 4 years at the end of your program. It helps give you the context of what's expected and how all of the next 3 or 4 years will essentially be documented in this one big book that you're going to submit. Get familiar with the structure that's expected. It also gives context as to why writing as you're going is really important. So many people say write as you go, but without seeing how it's going to be presented and where it will actually go and to what degree and depth to write in, I think it's not as helpful. So looking at a thesis really early, understanding how it all fits together, gives a lot of direction. The next thing you want to do is create a project management plan of your PhD. If you're in the UK and you're transferring from MPhil to PhD, you'll probably have to do this anyway, but I think doing this early and doing it with your supervisor can be so helpful. Here you'll basically have a loose plan, just plan out what you're going to do over the next 3 or 4 years. And I say loose plan because things will change and that's normal. But when you come into an undergrad or even a master's, you have so much structure given to you. You're told the courses you're going to take, where you're going to go, when you're going to show up. You're told all the information that you need, and then you sit an exam. It is so different in a PhD. There is no structure and you have to create that structure. This can be such a great thing. You can set your own timelines, you can set your own personal deadlines and things to work toward. In your plan, you can map out when you'll do data collection for your different projects, when you're going to do data analysis, when you'll write up to submit to journals, when you'll go to conferences, and when you'll give yourself time at the end to write up. Next, you want to start thinking about the papers you want to publish and the journals you want to publish them in. If possible, try and plan this early on and think about in your program, in that project management plan, when you'll be able to write and when you'll be able to submit to journals. It always takes longer than expected. In terms of which journals to submit to, then think about those key papers as you were doing your literature review. What were the journals that they were published in? And that will help give you an idea of where you might be submitting to. Then you want to get familiar with conferences. Science conferences are a great way to share your research, get feedback on it, meet other scientists as well, and exchange knowledge and ideas and potentially collaborate. And be aware as well that a couple of months before the conference, there will be a deadline for you to submit an abstract to actually be able to present and share your research at the conference. Next, you want to have a system to track all of the papers that are relevant to your research. For this, you can use any reference manager. Personally, I use Mendeley. You want to get into the habit of using this as early as possible, even before writing for publications. What's so helpful is you can create folders and subfolders by specific category and file your papers in a really organized way. That will make it so much simpler when you come to write up anything for your PhD where you want to find a specific reference. Next, you want to set up notifications for new research that's relevant to your area. You can use PubMed for this, and you can set up a specific search that gets its results emailed to you weekly. So if anything new comes out, you're immediately notified about it, and it helps you stay on top of your research field. The other thing you want to do is, as much as possible, write as you're going. Document as much as you can. If you're publishing throughout your PhD, you'll be writing anyway. But believe me, you will massively thank yourself when you can't remember what exactly you did and you're at the end of your PhD and you're trying to write up the big document. And this is why, back to the other point about seeing a thesis early on, this is why it's so helpful, because you know what direction you're headed in. And if you're writing as you're going, it means that toward the end, you can use what you have, and of course you're going to edit it and change it, but you're not totally starting from scratch, and that takes the pressure off. And then I would really recommend building your relationship with your supervisor. Set up a recurring meeting and meet with them regularly. How much you meet them and for how long is going to depend on where you are in your PhD. It'll be more frequent at the start as you're getting set up, and then you start gaining more and more independence. It can have such a big difference when you have that mutual understanding with your supervisor and you feel so much more comfortable at work. Next, you want to take advantage of trainings and workshops. This is another way to bring more structure into your PhD. You can start by assessing what are the areas that you need to develop as a researcher and also in terms of transferable skills, and book in these trainings and workshops that will give you all the skills that you need to help you succeed. I would then take the opportunity to TA and get involved in teaching. This is great for a few reasons. It helps you develop your communication skills. It helps further embed you in the department. I think it's also really nice for students when they feel like their TA is someone who they can really relate to. And it's also fantastic for your CV, especially if you want to be a lecturer in the future. I would then recommend taking time to network in areas that interest you, even if they're a little bit outside your PhD. And it can be in a few different ways. It could be reaching out to people on LinkedIn or social media. It can be connecting with other people at science conferences. Or if this is in your city, it could be going to different meetups that expose you to people from maybe different industries and different career paths that are of interest to you. I now have practical advice for your well-being and your motivation while you're on your program. PhD really is all about persistence, and so it's essential that you're able to show up consistently and also make sure that you're feeling good and you're working at a pace that you're able to keep going for years. The first thing I would do is to figure out a routine that works for you. When do you work best? When do you function at your best? Are you a morning person or are you an evening person? When are your most productive hours? Your PhD gives you so much flexibility and to usually work the hours that are best for you. So use that to your advantage. And once you figure out what works for you, try and stick with it so that it becomes a routine and a habit. You don't have to think about it. Next, I would make sure that you're still continuing the things that you really love and you really enjoy. It's so easy to dedicate your whole entire day and your being to your PhD, and it can come to the point where you forget the things that make you happy. So whatever it is, try and make sure that you're still enjoying it and making time for it, because these things are essential for making sure that we're positive and feeling happy and good. And if we're not feeling those things, it becomes more challenging to be able to actually show up in such an independent course. I would even suggest having something or a hobby or a project that's completely separate to your PhD. And this is great for a few reasons. If you take a little bit of time outside academia, it keeps you rooted in the real world. It gives you perspective because your specific niche area becomes your whole life. But it's so important to just step out a little bit, gain a little bit of perspective, and you always come back stronger. Anything that you feel like is your own project that you're working on that's completely separate to your work life, I think can be so helpful and keep you very resilient, because there will be days in your PhD where it feels like things just aren't quite going your way. But you're able to step away from it, go to your other project, and just feel like you are able to make progress there. I think it's also a great way to help you connect with people who have a shared interest. And then on people, I would not underestimate building your support network. Your support network is so important. For me, this was actually some of my colleagues in my PhD program. A PhD can be quite isolating. So making sure that you have people who you can connect to, who understand your experience, who you can exchange ideas with as well, is so helpful. Lastly, I would say definitely maintain a mindset of flexibility. This is essential for your resilience. We talked about your plan and your structure, and you'll try and stick with it as much as possible, but things will change, and sometimes things get delayed, but you have to maintain that flexibility and think outside the box and problem solve and try and make it work maybe a different way. So those were my first year PhD student tips. I hope that it was helpful. For more PhD content, you can check out this playlist. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.